What's up, guys? So I'm going to be starting to do the pre-New York narrative, or the pre-day narrative is what I'm going to start calling it, actually. That way I can actually look at things as a whole, as opposed to rushing in the morning, trying to pick out POIs that don't necessarily make sense, just looking to actually fit something into our criteria. So yeah, moving forward, like I said, I'm going to start doing these, just after sort of spread hours, getting into Asia, and just looking at higher time frame stuff, looking at the areas that would be of interest to us, and then where to look for, order flow shifts, order flow realignments, all that kind of fun stuff. So just to start this off, since it's the first one, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the higher time frame and integrate that into the narrative. So obviously, as most of you guys know, we've had sort of like a larger break of structure that happened over here. If we measure out, I don't know if we're in the premium just yet. Yeah, so you can see that we've just tapped into the premium of the overall, I would call this the daily swing structure. So basically what's happening is, we're kind of banking on the fact that we're expecting to see some form of a rollover. Now, how far we go in, how big of a reaction we get here, how big of a reaction we get here, if we get anything at all, or if we just crash down, they're all possibilities. They're ultimately all out of our control. So right now, as it stands, if you were in sort of like a sell position, and this was, I always like to revert back to, like, if this was a 1 minute chart, where would your first target be? And the first target would be obviously the week low, and then beyond that, we would be looking to target demand, and potentially week low down here, right? So with that being said, all I'm really looking at here right now is that essentially, if you look, we've had the boss, right? We've basically matched the high, and on the lower time frames, we've actually correlated our medium time frame as well as lower time frame, and that's what kind of got us into sells today potentially. So let's just talk about a little bit more in the 15 minute, give you a little bit more of an idea of what it is that I'm looking for, and how I would possibly get myself in a position sort of moving forward. So obviously you can see this nice V-shaped recovery. We push down. We basically have levels to take liquidity from into our POI. All of these things are POI checklists, points for us to be able to kind of tick off to make sure that we are staying on the right side of the market, and we're selecting appropriate POIs. So this is the 4-hour POI. You can see that we get our initial order flow shift kind of right here. I would call this the break of structure in terms of 15 minute. I wouldn't call that swing. Swing would be more down here. But yeah, 15-minute internal. So the true order flow shift happens when this this internal swing lets go. Once that happens, push down, kind of come back up, fail to take the high. We kind of talked about this morning in the narrative as well as in the trade recap. Let's just move right along and look at kind of where we're sitting right now. So we've had a most recent break of substructure sitting right here, right? So we're breaking down. The idea is that if we start moving up like this, we want to be selecting POIs that would be potentially in the premium of this leg. So ideally something in these wicks, possibly something just above to kind of induce these levels. Furthermore, like we still have, I believe it's a 30-minute that we could kind of pay attention to. I don't necessarily think that we're going to come up this high, but it's good to just kind of be aware of where this sits. We got equal highs resting right above. So yeah, just a good area to kind of keep your eye on. Obviously, POIs that make sense, like I said, depending on the delivery. So what that means for me personally is if we break down any further, just remember that if and when we get an order flow shift, it doesn't necessarily mean that these highs are going to be weak. It just means that we're getting a reaction to these levels, and we need to correlate our POI flowchart rules to be able to get involved with some sort of a trade, right? So in that case, our premium and discount tool would go something along the lines of this, and we would be looking to essentially take this potentially short. Now, depending on how you interpret the flowchart and how advanced you are at actually mapping structure. Technically, now the way that the flowchart is designed is we can be pro structure in terms of swing, or pro structure in terms of internal, and play the sort of counter trend against it. So if and when we come down into here, we see a 15-minute alignment, we have liquidity to target. if we break internal structure like this, the idea is that this would technically be a pro 15-minute internal structure move, which would get us involved the exact same way as a pro trend move aligned with higher time frames. So you can always utilize your flow charts in a way that it can get you in on both sides. We absolutely need to see 15-minute realignment at a valid POY to be able to play this into where we would take our next higher time frame sell from. So in the case that this very specific setup happened, I don't know that it will, but in the case that it did, ideally what we would want to do is map out sort of like this leg like this. You could even map out the entire swing structure leg if you'd like, but this should be more than enough. And ultimately you can see we have a very, very clear unmitigated sort of flip zone or interaction zone here. We also have a nested POY resting right above here that could potentially serve us as a really good area to kind of sell down. Obviously taking first profits at the demand, and then furthermore holding this into a higher time frame sell. So that's kind of one option. So two options, potentially taking longs here. If we break this level right here, we could look for sells basically once we pull back into the premium of the higher time frame leg, the 15-minute leg. And yeah, that's basically it. So those are kind of like the setups that I'm looking for that, in my opinion, are the highest probability setups. So let me just recap this really quick. Essentially, if we start moving from here, you're going to want to measure from here to here. Ideally, we're looking at something like this, possibly just looking for order flow to realign and then swing back up and then come down. Something along the lines of that to be able to get yourself into a trade. If we break down a little bit further, we want to measure from here to here and then look for that same sort of thing. Don't be scared to flip between your time frames to look for POIs. The other thing I would say is once we, like how I would set my alerts is like, let's say we come down like this, I would obviously want to map basically where the premium would start. And then that gets me interested in what kind of price action we're dealing with around this area. We can start to correlate our time frames and say, okay, I think there's a 10-minute POI if I'm not mistaken. Very clear 10-minute POI that does take liquidity right here. So I would maybe have that mapped out and then just kind of watch how price sort of acts around here. And then it's going to trigger the new POI criteria for something like this. So that's that's option one. Option two is going to be, like I said, looking for the potential longs internal structure break, potentially taking this into a deeper area of this leg. Depending on how you maneuver your flow chart and how comfortable you feel trading technically counter trend, but pro internal structure once we get the internal structure break at a very specific level. And then furthermore, if and when we do this exact same move, if you do not want to take these levels right here to take this counter trend, you could also just wait for an alignment, whether it be here, whether it be a potential liquidation of these highs before we start to come down further, and then we would need to see an order flow realignment again. All of these different areas are areas that are very, very high value zones, provided we get the right confirmations. So I just wanted to shed light on sort of what that higher time frame picture looks like, so that we're not just making decisions first thing in the morning, or at least I'm not, and I can just give you kind of like an overall picture of what I'm looking for, and you'll have something to kind of reference throughout your day tomorrow. So let me know what you guys think. Would love to hear, in the off-topic section or wherever it is, just or react to this and give it a thumbs up, whatever it is, just so that I know that this is helpful. Shoot me a DM, whatever it is, just so that I can make sure that we're on the right track. But I do think this is a more effective way to look at higher time frame moves, especially because that's more of the style that we sort of trade. So let me know. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll catch you later.